Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would answer a question that I got asked, and it was someone who said, Jason, why do you always on your upper-lower splits seem to train your upper body first, then your lower, then take a day off? So for example, I bench on Monday, I do a squat and deadlift day on Tuesday, then I do speed bench Thursday, and then speed squat and deadlift on Friday, and I don't have Wednesday or the weekends for normal training. Now, it doesn't mean I don't do anything, I just don't do my normal training in there. So people have asked, like, but if you do it that way, isn't your upper body going to be fatiguing your lower body? Isn't that going to interfere? And the answer is no, not so much, not to the extent that you would think. But what will happen is that your upper body will be really, really fatigued. It'll be really fatigued. Now, sometimes people will say, well, isn't that what happens at a powerlifting meet? Don't you squat and then you bench press? Well, I think the misconception there is that hitting a max squat or even 3 really heavy singles on the squat is insanely taxing. It's just not. It really isn't in comparison to a full workout. So what tends to end up happening is that, particularly if you're going to go heavy on your benching or heavy on an upper body day, if you do a serious lower body day the day before without a day off, you run into problems, right? You're going to run into problems with recovery. It will absolutely measurably interfere with your ability to move any real weight. And we don't find it the other direction. In other words, let's say, for example, you do a max effort bench press day on Monday and then Tuesday is a max effort deadlift. You come in and hit deadlift PRs, it's just fine. And it doesn't matter that the upper body gets slightly fatigued, because very rarely is the upper body a limit in your squat and deadlift and other lower body movements. And I'm not saying it can't be, but realistically speaking, we haven't maximally traumatized things like our upper back. Because usually what is it that you're concerned with lower body fatigue, right? Or an upper body that's going to be a weakness for your squat or your deadlift. It's going to tend to be the upper back. But in most strength training programs and serious programs, do we really do a lot of heavy work for the upper back? Even on upper body days, not really. Not really. What do we do? Some rows? Maybe some upright rows. Right? Pendlay rows. Pull-ups and chin-ups don't count because they don't really work the upper back that much. So realistically, you're concerned with things like your T-spines, your traps. But those things don't get really beat with heavy weight. You tend to do a lot of volume. And if you come in and you do a fair amount of volume with those, but you haven't just destroyed that area, what tends to happen? It's slightly fatigued, but not enough to interfere with your maxes. Or not enough to interfere with your really, really heavy sets. So it becomes really a non-issue. It becomes a non-issue. And that area is going to get worked harder again on your lower body days. Right? Isn't that what's going to happen? Squatting and deadlifting is going to work the T-spine, traps, all that stuff. So it's going to get worked again. But usually if you have programmed your volume appropriately, it's not a problem. Because usually if you need a lot of extra upper back specialization, you're going to get it on your lower body days anyways. You're going to do half of it on the upper and then half of it on the lower. Right? So you're not going to be as fatigued because you've done some work for it, but you haven't really truly fatigued that area that much. And again, we're not hitting heavy work doing it. It's not like you're coming in and doing max effort rowing or anything. You're doing heavy pressing. And we tend to, again, do volume type work for those areas and not necessarily ultra high volume, because we usually program it that way. That's the other thing that people have to remember too. A good program written by a decent coach, or if you're writing your own, you're going to account for that. You're going to say, hey, I'm going to deadlift tomorrow, so I'm going to train my upper back and mid back on my upper body day, or my bench press day, or however you organize those upper body days, right? You're going to train it, but you're not going to train it into the ground if you know tomorrow's deadlift day. You're going to create some fatigue. You're going to create some training stimulus. But we're not going to destroy it. Now, if you did, you probably would have problems. Like, let's say you come in and you say, all right, well, I know I've got a deadlift tomorrow, but it's my upper body day. And instead of waiting till later in the week to do the higher volume rows, and I know I'm going to get a couple days off, because we're only going to train 4 days a week realistically. And people who say, well, I train more than that. Well, nobody asked you, dumbass. Why don't you get on a proper program? See how easy that is? See how easy we can reject these arguments for people who use bad programming? Well, I went to Jeff Nipples and I got a 4-day upper lower. Yeah, you got a 6-day a week upper lower from a guy with no lower body strength. He did nothing but his upper body. The guy can't squat or pull shit. So of course maybe he gets away with that. He has all upper body. He doesn't train his legs. Not to a serious degree that you would expect for a guy his size and with his bench press strength. So of course he gave you some silly ass, goofy ass shit that you might temporarily get away with. But if you're going to follow good programming, it's going to be a 4-day upper lower, like every good champion just about out there does, barring a few really elite people. That's the norm, and you better have a good reason to deviate from the norm. You are not a special, unique snowflake, and I don't care that you look over and say, yeah, well, Marissa Enda under Chad Wesley Smith does it slightly different. Yeah, she's a world record holding athlete under the care of a full-time professional coach. Okay, perspective, hoping to gain 0.1% advantage by adjusting. Are there people with better Wilks scores who do it the other way? Yes. So it doesn't prove anything. It just proves that her coach is good enough to get away with it and make it work. I'm going to recommend, if you don't have Chad's experience, that you don't necessarily try to do that. So let's back over to the point. You're going to do a 4-day. You can wait to do all that extra upper back work till you're about to have time off, right? You could get away with some of it on maybe your speed day or your volume benching day. Or if it's that big of a priority, because it really needs to be hit, come in and do it on your other lower body day where you're going to have a day off. But you generally need a day off from real training. What do we define as real training? Heavyweight. Because I don't take days off. Personally, I have active recovery, GPP, restoration, whatever we want to call them. But it's not heavy. Not heavy to drag a sled or do farmer's walks or 30 rep sets of reverse hypers and band press downs. It's not the same thing. But you want days off after the lower body days. You don't want to come in and train the upper, because if you do, here's what's going to happen. The other thing is easily programmable around. You come in and do heavy deadlifts on Monday and think you're going to bench on Tuesday. Best of luck with that. Now, even people say, well, Jason, didn't you run that experiment where you ran conjugate as a pure ME 7 days a week? Yes, I did. And if we followed the rules that I just gave, what did we learn? What happened? I didn't get a single bench press PR the entire time I did it. Not one. Because my upper body was always fatigued, because I had always done lower body the day before. I got squat and deadlift PRs. I didn't get bench PRs. That proves my point. Me actually having run that experiment is a perfect example of what the downside is to exactly what I described. You watched me do it. I confirmed what I'm trying to tell you now. You're going to struggle with your upper body strength and development. Going to make it harder. Because the lower body isn't as concerned with the upper body fatigue. It's just not. But that back and leg fatigue from your lower body days will absolutely affect your pressing in a very real way. So you need days off, guys. You need a day off after your lower body days. I don't care whether it's max effort. I don't care whether it's dynamic effort. I don't care whether it's repetition effort. You need that day off. Do not try to do real training. You can do general physical preparedness. You should definitely do restoration. Don't come in and try to do a serious upper body session the next day. it is simply not going to work that well in the long term. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.